Hello everybody, welcome to the 8th edition of the In Clover podcast. I'm Stephen Humphreys, the Chief Executive Officer of Clover Risk Funding and your host for today's podcast. Yes, that's right, I'm finally back in the chair. Today we have a very special podcast introducing you to our new staff member, Belinda Giles. Belinda has joined us as our General Counsel a couple of weeks ago. So today we're going to get into a little bit about Belinda and talk about her journey in the law and her journey to Clover. So welcome, Belinda.
Thanks for having me.
Obviously, we are very excited to have you join us at Clover Risk Funding, but I'm sure people are listening today wanting to know a little bit more about yourself. So I'm going to take you out of your comfort zone and ask you a little bit about how you got to being at Clover Risk Funding and a little bit about your background in the law. It's always interesting, even to me, to hear people's stories about how they ended up working in this very strange profession that we work in. So let's start there. How did you end up being a lawyer?
I think, like most lawyers, there was probably an element of chance. I said, well, an element of chance, but also an element of just being really stubborn. I said when I was 6 that I wanted to be a lawyer when I grew up. And I obviously didn't know what that meant when I was 6 years old, but I stuck with it. When I was about 12 or 13, I thought, yeah, I really want to be a hairdresser. And then when I was about 16, I thought, yeah, I think I want to be a doctor. And then I realised I'd have to do chemistry, which was a no for me. So I went back to law. And it was just something that I had said that I wanted to do one day, so I couldn't not do it.
Right.
So I had to be stubborn about it. And that's how I ended up at uni, I suppose.
So you were locked in from a long time out.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Because
31 years ago.
Well, most of the stories you hear are, I wanted to be a professional sports person and it didn't work out, or I wanted to be everything else, or I watched LA Law if you were my generation, I watched LA Law when I was younger, but you've been locked in for a while. Definitely
before I watched Boston Legal. I don't think I was watching Boston Legal at age 6, but if I hadn't have said it at age 6, then I probably would have said it after watching James Spader on Boston Legal.
Well, I was just about to ask that, and regular listeners to my editions of In Clover know that I like to meander down rabbit holes that probably weren't in the script. So I was going to say, are you team Denny Crane or team Alan Shaw?
I don't think there's a distinction. Surely it's team Denny Crane and Alan Shaw.
Okay. So people who haven't watched Boston Legal, you now have to go and watch Boston Legal. I can tell you that it is on HBO Max. That's not a plug. We're not sponsored by them. It's just I've been recently rewatching it.
Yeah, I rewatched it maybe 5 years ago. Still pretty good.
And so your joy of watching James Spader in court, was that what led you to commercial litigation, or has there been another intervening important event in your life that led you to there?
Nothing as important as Boston Legal, that's for sure. No, I think it was chance that I ended up in litigation. I got a job at a law firm when I was in my second last year of uni. There was some discovery that needed to be done. So I kind of started with the discovery and then ended up helping the litigation lawyer a bit more than any other team. And yeah, kind of just stuck with it. You know, I was getting good feedback. I think that the way litigation matters run just sits comfortably with the way that I think. I see litigation as a bit of a puzzle of the facts and the law, and you need to piece them together to come up with your strategy. And I think that is just comfortably within how I think. So I fell into it, but it was also something that I felt really comfortable doing. And so I stuck with it. And then the insolvency aspect to it came a little bit later. I think that across the board, there's litigation lawyers that can do insolvency and insolvency lawyers that can do litigation. And I'm probably more in the litigation lawyer that can do insolvency space. I've done more commercial matters as well. But yeah, kind of just fell into those practice areas depending on who was doing what around me and what I was enjoying at the time, and just kind of followed that interest, I suppose.
It's interesting that you talk about puzzles. I get asked by people, what do I do not not as much as you would think,
Yeah.
but often it's people who are completely outside of what we do.
And professional gambler is
Professional
the answer,
gambler, no. I actually had a very good friend's daughter who is 10 say to me at a lunch one day after I described litigation funding, and she calls me Uncle Steve. Oh, so you're just a gambler. And I very quickly stopped her from thinking about that by saying, no, we solve problems.
Yeah, there's much more analysis that goes into it than gambling.
Correct. We're not just guessing, but we're actually problem solving at a high level and putting together the pieces of a puzzle.
And I think one of the pieces of the problem solving puzzle is, and one of the things that makes a good litigator is being a problem identifier. You can't stop at identifying the problem, but you need to be a good problem identifier so you can really work out what is the problem that I'm trying to solve, what is the legal issue, what is the factual issue, so that you can really target that focus and solve the right problem. I think that that's the first step in kind of moving the puzzle forward.
So let's probe that a little bit further, because obviously you've joined us as a litigation funder now. You're on, depending on your perspective, the dark side or the light side, but let's call it the light side.
Yeah.
We get asked a lot in our business, what makes a good litigation funding file? You've talked a little bit already about problem identification. What do you see are the things granted, you've been with us for 3 weeks, but it is probably worth saying to the audience that we have worked together on litigation funding files before. So from your perspective, both as a litigator who's worked on funded files and now a funder, what are the key things in your mind that make a good fundable litigation file?
I actually think it should really be roughly the same for a funder as a private practice litigation lawyer. We really should be looking at the same things, because whether there's a funder involved or not, you want to be looking for the right case for your client. And I think that that's ticking the boxes of, is there a claim that has good merits? What is the quantum, and is it commercially viable to pursue that as against the fees that you might have to pay to run it? And what are the recovery prospects? I think that funders tend to focus on recovery prospects a little bit more than a litigation lawyer might, because I think that their client might have that emotional connection to running a claim, or a principled approach to it, where the recovery prospects are less important. But I think that any good litigation lawyer needs to talk to their client about that and say, no, the purpose of this is to recover your loss. And if there is no prospect of actually recovering, then you're throwing good money after bad. So I think that those kind of key things, is it a good claim? What's it worth compared to how much it's going to cost? And can we actually recover anything? That has to be the same for litigation lawyers and funders, those three kind of baseline things to look for.
And now that you're in the world of funding, how important is the team?
I have worked with many, many different people in my career so far, and I think one of the most important aspects is trust. If you don't trust the team that's around you, then it's going to be 100 times more difficult. So I think trusting the team is vital. I would say also, though, the relationships that you have with the general community, the legal community around you, is just as important, because if you don't have a good relationship with the lawyer that's on the other side of a matter, then it's going to be much harder to negotiate a resolution. I think that a large part of a dispute resolution lawyer's job is to build a relationship with everyone that's involved in the matter, whether they're the adversary or the client, so that you can find the best outcome.
I think that's really important. And it's an important lost point a lot when we see funding applications or we see files that come across our desk, which is, what is the quality of the advice the defendant's getting?
Yes.
And what is the relationship
Yeah.
between the plaintiff lawyer and the defendant lawyer.
Yeah, I don't want to have a look at just who the plaintiff's lawyer is or who the lawyer is that has made the funding application. I want to have a look at who's acting for the defendant as well. Do I know them to be reasonable? Do I know them to give good quality advice? Or are they kind of maybe less likely to do those things?
And obviously, this is probably putting you a little bit on the spot because you've only been with us for 3 weeks, but what's the thing that surprised you most about funding so far?
I think what I'm learning the most about is how to be, how do I say this politely? I am very direct and forthright in my communication. And
yes, I've noticed that.
Everyone, I think the most commonly used adjective to describe me is direct. And I think there's a different kind of communication piece that you have to play when you sit in the role as funder. You are the customer in some ways, but you're also the service provider in some ways, and you kind of sit in that weird position in the middle. And I have really enjoyed watching the Clover team navigate that position and be incredibly diplomatic in their communication with everyone. And I've really, that's quite inspiring for me because that's something that I will need to work on. So I've really enjoyed that. And I think it's just also working out what the right level of involvement is. So when you are looking at draft documents or you are participating in a mediation or heading down to court to watch something, just kind of working out what is the right level of involvement here. How active do I need to be?
Let's shift gears a little bit. I always ask this question when I do the introduction of a new staff member. I've got a couple of standards that I ask, but I'm going to start with what led you to funding. Now, I know it can't just be you didn't want to do timesheets anymore.
I mean, that's a big part of it.
And I also know it couldn't just be to work with me. So
that's less of a part of it.
Exactly. I know that had to be less of a part of it. So obviously it's a big change to leave private practice and quite an accomplished career in private practice to come and work in litigation funding in private enterprise. So I was about to say, what were you thinking? But I don't think that's the right way to frame it. You've had this career as a litigator. Now you're a funder. What led you to funding?
I think it was definitely time for a change for me. And regardless of the conversations that I'd had with Clover, I was looking for a change. I have worked for a few different firms and I've taken a moment out of private practice previously. And there are pros and cons to private practice, and I really, really love it. I really enjoy the on-the-tools work. And I had kind of gotten to the point where I was doing less and less of that. And I also really love training young lawyers, but that can be very tiring as well. So I had kind of just lost the right balance of what I was doing in private practice. And I had been on the grind for 13 years or something, and I just needed a bit more balance in my life. So I had decided that I was ready for a change. I had actually probably 90% decided to go to the bar, and then Nicole Burns called me and said, would you ever think about leaving private practice? And I thought, funny you should mention that. I've been thinking about it yesterday. So I was ready for a change, and then I think the timing just aligned perfectly. I think that I have the right skill set for what Clover needed to move its business forward, and you can't really ignore when the timing lines up that well. When I have just decided it's time for a change and Clover's just decided we need someone just like you, it's really hard to ignore how nicely that kind of lines up. And then obviously, we had the least or the most unorthodox job interview of all time. I think we did 5Ks on the water. I was perfectly fine. Apparently it gave you a knee injury. But yeah, a 5-kilometre walk along the foreshore in Perth, chatting about all of the world's problems and solving at least half of them. It's it's the right fit when you can go to a job interview and actually barely talk about the work.
Well, I don't think we talked about the job.
Very, very little discussion about the job.
Yeah, I mean, regular listeners will know we've been talking 20 minutes and I haven't mentioned cricket.
I don't think we talked about cricket
No,
that
we
day
didn't.
either.
We didn't. But the knee injury may very well has been an amalgam of cricket problems and walking problems.
I appreciate your restraint to refrain from talking about the cricket that day.
Thank you. But it leads me to another interesting area, and you mentioned balance. Mm-hmm. Balance is obviously something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm very passionate about the need for people across professions to have things outside of work that they do just as a normal part of their life. What is your go-to? I'm going to do the inverted commas thing here for people just listening. What is your go-to balance thing, for want of a better term, that you have in your life that is an absolute must for you every week, every day?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not every day, but every week I am spending time on my bike, on my road bike, and every week I'm making it to the dance studio, and every week I'm hanging out with my dogs, and every week I'm hanging out with my partner. Those 4 things I think are the core parts of my life outside of work that give me that balance. I will say though, it's not always balance, because I am the kind of person who wants to do everything all of the time. Mm-hmm. I want to fill my day. I end up, not wanting to talk to anyone and needing to sit at home by myself in a quiet room for 10 hours to recover. But I love the hobbies in my life. I love doing them. And I think when I've been in private practice, I don't not do them. I just do them all poorly. I'll get up at 4:45, I'll go and ride my bike for an hour and a half. I'll get into the office by 8 o'clock. I'll do a 10, 12-hour day, and then I'll go to the dance studio for, 7 or 8 o'clock and do another hour. I probably won't eat, so something will definitely suffer. So I've always managed to continue to do them, just not very well. What I've found so far in the 3 or 4 weeks that I've been with Clover, I haven't missed a dance class. I've made all my cycling appointments, and I'm still getting, the sleep that I need and the food that I need. So I think it's having those things outside of my life, but actually not pressuring myself to do all of them. That's what gives me balance.
Oh, look, there's a rumour that I've heard that I started Clover so that I could make cricket training, which is absolutely not true. It's absolutely not true. But yeah, I mean, I think the things in our lives that give our balance are vital, and I think it's always heartening for me as the CEO of this business to hear that we have fostered an environment that allows people or helps people to have the comfort that they can go away and do the things that they love to do.
I really love creative projects with my hands as well. I like to build things, I like to sew things, and I think that that's one of the hobbies that had fallen away. I found myself pondering this the other day. I got home from work on Wednesday last week, and I altered a piece of clothing in that night, and it is just mind-boggling for me that I could do a creative project from start to finish in the evening after work. Mm-hmm. Even if I didn't necessarily work a long day in private practice, I'd be so drained from the 7 long days beforehand, and the responsibility that comes with that role, that I wouldn't have the energy for that kind of thing. So it's mind-boggling to me that I did that whole thing in one day.
Which again makes me smile, which is great.
Yeah.
Well, look, one last question, and then we'll let everyone get back to their days, having listened to us today. Clover's obviously growing, and we've grown over the last 3 years, and you are coming on board at a really exciting time for our business. What's the thing that you're looking forward to the most in the next 6 months of your time with us?
I think I am really enjoying the inward-facing, the internal legal function that I'm doing so far. So what I'm looking forward to, though, is finding the balance of what I'm going to be focusing on for Clover. So at the moment, it's very inward-facing, but as time goes on, I'll start to get more involved in funded matters, and I'm just really looking forward to learning more of the business so that I can do each of those different aspects of the role and feel a bit more comfortable with them, and learn a bit more about what the role is and really sink into it.
Brilliant. Well, everyone, that's we're not sure what this is going to be titled at the time of recording. It could be Banter with Belinda. It could be a catch up with General Giles because I'm trying to create that nickname. But
I
it's
mentioned the Gilo nickname to my family in Sydney this weekend, and they do not approve.
well, then I'll have to reconsider that. But look, it's obviously wonderful from our perspective to have you on board. Thank you for the trust in us to join us. It's always great to see new people start. For everyone listening, thank you as always for your support of the In Clover podcast and of Clover Risk Funding. I couldn't let this go without having a plug for our business. Obviously, if you are interested in litigation funding or talking to us about what we offer, you can reach out to us from the website, which is www.cloverriskfunding.com. You can make your application at apply.cloverriskfunding.com, or you can call me or Belinda to talk about your litigation funding matter. We would love it if you liked and subscribed to this podcast where you get all of your good podcasts. But that having been said, thank you very much for joining me today, Belinda.
Thanks for having me. That was less stressful than I was anticipating.
Well, that probably means that I haven't asked you the right questions and I'm probably going to get told that I should have asked something different. But
Do the whole thing again.
Well, we're not doing the whole thing again. That was great. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, everyone, for listening.